On to you, Taurus, out here. Hopefully, y'all are having a great day. So, for you, Taurus, you have the Nine of Wands, the King of Wands, and then you have the Hierophant, not the Hierophant, the Temperance. It is starting to get warmer. I'm not gonna lie. Tomorrow is supposed to be warm. Also, the next day is supposed to be kind of cool, but then the other 2 days after that is warm. So it's warm as a mug. I ain't even gonna lie right now. It's kind of heating up. It's still kind of cold, but it's kind of heating up. Anyway, um, it's kind of getting warmer. I'm kind of feeling the atmosphere, window open and everything. It's kind of warming up a bit. But anyway, so for you, Taurus, how y'all doing? Hopefully y'all are having a great day. The Nine of Wands, the King of Wands, and the Hierophant for you speaks to how you, Taurus, a lot of you Taurus right now are are in a position where, like, the Nine of Wands and the King of Wands, 9 plus 1 is 10, fulfillment, feeling good about yourselves. The Nine of Wands, feeling rejuvenated. Hierophant, feeling, not the Hierophant, excuse me, the Temperance, feeling amazing. This is a time right now for you, Taurus, where you feel really good about your life, really good about your disposition. And like I said before, really good about your life. You know what I mean? Um, there's no negativity stuck on y'all like that, because you Taurus have gotten that off of your shoulders, off of you, right? Because you Taurus basically understand what type of time it is. And so, because of this, a lot of you Taurus happen to be in a position where whatever it is that you Taurus are doing, traveling, staying where you are, whatever it is, whatever kind of emotional work you Taurus are doing, it's working big time, because you Taurus legitimately feel so much lighter because of the fact that you Taurus don't have to deal with, like I said, some of the emotional baggage, excuse me, that you had to put up with for the past couple of months, right? I'll say about 6 to about 8 months. And you Taurus this is why taking time out is so important, because it takes, sometimes it can take that much time to get out of the problem, or the issue that you're in, right? This is why I say take at least a month. When you go through something heavy, take minimum, it can be longer, but take minimum 30 days, aka a month. And the reason for that is because you want to make sure, right? And I've talked about this before. You want to make sure that those 30 days you're healing from your issues. That means asking where you went wrong, what you could have done better, where they went wrong, what you could have done better. Going in, figuring out why you feel this way, figuring out how is it that you don't have to feel like this. Whenever it is that I got a problem and I have a problem with another person, first and foremost, I usually check to see if the situation is okay, if I'm doing all right. What could I have done to actually make the situation better? And so I'm not being a people pleaser. I'm trying to make sure that I'm good and right and exact. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not tripping, because sometimes I could be tripping. We all can. But the thing is, with me, I can actually be accountable for when I was tripping and I was wrong. And so what I'll do is that I am checking to see that I am not tripping. I'm not the one in the wrong. I'm not about to say something wild and disrespectful and run around and be on some nonsense. You understand what I'm saying? So I go into myself, I check in with my own self, and I think to myself, okay, that didn't make me feel good. Like a discussion with the whole BLK people. An example of that would be like BLK people, right? Melanated folks, and like the whole like chattel thing, right? I don't like those discussions. And the reason why I don't like those discussions, and it used to get me riled up, because I know my history, and I know my people's history. We don't come from that. We don't come from that. And why it used, not now, but it used to get me riled up was because of the fact that so many people, right, my complexion, my phenotype, my hair texture, we get so caught up and passionate about trying to be a servient or servantile a mentality and people. And it's like, we can serve in the perspective of like we do great work for the planet that other people benefit and ourselves benefit from. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we are serf people, though. And so when you see, so what used to have me upset was the fact that so many people keep this machine going, keep this thing going. And it's like, why are we still talking about this? So a few days ago, this literally happened a few days ago, I had to go within myself and I had to learn to emotionally detach myself even from that. So that's what I mean when I say that you, Taurus, are very much so good, because when you are aware of what's going on and you are aware of what gets you upset, what emotionally tugs on your emotional strings, then you're able to pay attention to those and you can see, like, if you don't get this thing under control, that can be used against you. So you got to learn to not be so emotionally attached to this like that. And see why that's so important is because the Seven of Swords and the Two of Swords, which is the Seven of Swords and the Two of Swords for you, Taurus, is all about how, excuse me, it's all about how you, Taurus, happen to be in a position where, like, the Seven of Swords is that you had to create a boundary a specific kind of way. You had to redirect your ego. You had to understand that why you shouldn't be so emotionally attached, and that all the ego is for, the ego is nothing but defense. It's to make sure that you don't lose your mind and to survive, right? And so that's exactly my point. You, Taurus, had to learn to utilize the ego the correct way to make sure that, okay, we always, all of us, we always gonna have one, right? We can get rid of it, but then the ego will regrow. So we'll always essentially have one. But it doesn't mean that the ego can and will control us. We can send our ego out to do different functions. And one of those things that we can do is to make sure that the world doesn't drive us up a tree and out of that and out of our minds. So some of the things that would have gotten you, Taurus, was the people that are around you that were terrible influences that treated you, Taurus, like you were trash. And so now you, Taurus, understand, okay, like, some of you, Taurus, are you're understanding, okay, not to be so emotionally attached. When you see this happens, it doesn't necessarily always mean that it's this. But in order to find out if it is this, do a little bit more further investigation. And then once you see that this person is on that type of time, it's like, oh, okay, nah, you can't take them seriously, right? And it requires you, yes, it requires a certain amount of risk, and it also requires a certain amount of, like, patience. But it requires you to be a little bit of a fool, right? Because how I know when somebody's playing with me is I kind of let them have the upper hand sometimes, or a lot of the times, just to see, and then essentially wait to see what it is that they're going to do now that they have the upper hand. Because I know that a lot of people are jockeying desperately for a higher position, right? Everybody is, I'm going to say everybody, but a lot of people who are caught up in the delusion of grandeur, they're caught up with control, power, trying to control other people, have power over other people, right? Use them as pawns and toys and all this other type of trash. So I understand people's mentality, right? Not everybody, of course not, but a lot of people's mentality. And I understand it enough to know that that's what they're doing, trying to gain power over others. And so what happens when I, for a little while, give the person not total power, but a little bit of influence over me, while I still observe them, what it is that they're going to do? And then when they show me that they wildin', I'm like, oh, okay, see. And what do I do with that is I just take my power back. Like, oh, okay, you on this? Oh, okay, now I know you on some BS. So the Three of Wands and the Nine of Pentacles represents how. So a lot of you Taurus are. I'm just showing you Taurus some of the things that you Taurus could do when you get to a point where you get that good with it. But yeah, those are some of the things that you Taurus could do. Like you Taurus can become okay with playing boo boo the fool a little bit, and then like giving the person a certain amount of control just to see what they'll do. And like most people are so caught up with positioning and power and trying to style and profile and kind of humiliate somebody to the point where they end up humiliating themselves because it ends up being like a swinging contest. So now it becomes it goes from having an opportunity to now, yo, you know what I mean? Like they start being insecure. you know? And then you see the insecurity coming out. You see it. They can't hide it. It's hard for them to hide it. And that's why it is that you Taurus are in a very powerful position, because once you start being at Three of Wands, Nine of Pentacles, you Taurus are in a very powerful position. You're a lot more emotionally lighthearted, and that's what I mean. That's my point. Like when you get to a point where you can become lighthearted emotionally all the time, or that becomes the standard. When you become emotionally lighthearted, that's when it is that you're able to do very amazing things. You become the fool. You know, you do a lot of amazing things that people really kind of scratch their head and figure out, well, how is it that you Taurus can actually exist and live in a fashion or live in a way that is different from a lot of what other people got going on, but you don't take this stuff personally. And part of the reason, excuse me, and part of the reason why is because you don't live the way that a lot of people live, right? The Nine of Pentacles, the Justice, you Taurus, right? Justice is ruled by Venus, so is Taurus. You Taurus are beginning to understand that, yes, you know, a lot of the stuff that what a lot of people call love is a delusion. It's a delusion. Like if you Taurus have ever been in a situation where it's like the person isn't actually like being in a relationship with you for real, for real. They're looking at you from a perspective of like we're just kind of like fantasizing about actually being in a actually being in a relationship with you, fantasizing it, and they're like playing with the idea, but actually being in a relationship with you, your faults and your follies, as well as the things that you do. A lot of people don't do stuff like that. And so the situation with that is that the Two of Cups and the Seven of Pentacles, it speaks to how, like, again, all it does is it just reveals other people's conceit, but it shows how you Taurus have wisened up. And it kind of shows, if I'm being honest with you, it kind of shows why you Taurus, if I'm being honest, it would kind of show why you Taurus are being a little bit bored. A little bit. You know, and I've talked about this plenty of times. It's probably because you Taurus are bored at how, you know, a lot of people are just kind of really like downstairs, and you know, they're not really about what you think. And so you Taurus have a realistic view of love, but people have a more delusional one where it's like the two of y'all are just supposed to be on a honeymoon phase. They don't actually do anything. You know, but then when it comes to them to actually do relationship work, it's like, oh, they're dragging their feet. You know, when I say relationship work, I mean taking you seriously, fixing something about themselves that would jeopardize the relationship if they don't. That requires actual that requires excuse me excuse me, that actually requires like real work. And a lot of people are really not really caught up with really doing the work to actually be like, I messed up. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? I messed up. You know what I mean? It is what it is, you know? So, you know, stuff like that. But let's clarify the Seven of Pentacles. Now, the Seven of Pentacles is about how you, Taurus, you're getting a more, you, Taurus, were a little bit delusioned or delusional yourselves. And that now you, that's what I'm saying. Like, you, Taurus, are becoming more and more disillusioned, or like not caught up in the delusion of what love has been for you. And now it's like you, Taurus, are starting to realize like, hey, like, you know, your planet Venus will afford you relationships, but your planet Venus will also kind of stagnate them or stop them, or kind of be detrimental when it comes to relationships, because it's like, is it is it a relationship for real, where there's work to be done, or is it something where it's just like a feel good session? It's just for a certain time, you feel good, but there's no actual real work being done here. So, excuse me, let's clarify the Seven of Pentacles after shuffling up these cards one more time. So you, Taurus, have the Nine of Wands, the Knight of Wands, the Two of Swords, the Five of Wands, and then you, Taurus, also have the Four of Wands, right? So again, these three cards right here speak to how you, Taurus, are like I said before, you feel very good about your disposition, because the Nine of Wands, right? The Nine of Wands, the Knight of Wands, and the Two of Swords, other Taurus may be living in a delusion, but you, Taurus, have been separated kind of from the Taurus group, because you see things. And then not only that too, but also you're just more aware of when another person is caught up in the delusion, right? Like if you've ever been with anybody and they don't actually do anything, right? And now you, Taurus, are going to question that. Like, you don't actually do anything, you know? Like today, like for instance, like today, my mom's still in the hospital. I paid for some you know, for some hair to be delivered to her and stuff like this, some synthetic hair, because she was saying that how she has like a friend up in there that's gonna do her hair and stuff like that or whatever. And, you know, I paid for, like, you know, I have no idea about that hair stuff, so I had to have those, you know, my mom and her friend and everything like that help me out. But like, you know what I mean, like stuff like that, you know. My mom was thanking me, and I'm like, oh gosh, don't worry about it. Like, cost me $20. Like, don't worry about it at this point, you know. And then not only that too, but ready for her to get out. She's okay. You know, she's all right. It's just that, you know, the hospital or whatever hold her, yeah, me being a pain in the butt a little bit, you know. But doing stuff like that, like, is a person willing to actually like go the extra mile for you, no matter how much it costs? And when I say how much, I'm not saying for it to be like millions, thousands, but I mean like, especially the little things, you know, especially the little things. What are they actually doing? Do they bring value? And you know, what I'm saying here for you, Taurus, is that y'all are really learning the differences excuse me, of what it is. That like, you got to be careful with Venus, because Venus can kind of it'll give you the pleasure, and the things look good, but it can kind of be like milky. Like, if you're not careful, this thing can be carried away. So the Five of Wands and the Four of Wands, and for me, over the course of excuse me, y'all lives, you, Taurus, are gonna see more and more of the milky stuff, like the illusionary stuff, And I just see a lot of you Taurus aren't really going for it. But that's pretty much it. Comment on the video, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel.